Hey, Tree here. I'm thinking about culture and religion and how we mix those up a lot and how that causes harm and conflict and pain. And so I was feeling called to talk about that from my perspective. Culture is like a group of organisms in a petri dish. They're the same species, and they live in the same container or the same environment. And so an observer might think that they have a shared belief system, and oftentimes they do. But in reality, we can bump into people who look like us and sound like us. They came from the same environment as us, and make assumptions that they have the same belief system, and they don't, and that can cause a lot of harm. So, for instance, I was raised in an environment where I would say 98% of us were white, and it was a rural southern state in the US, and it appeared that the majority of the people were Christian. And we don't know for sure how many of them were not, because individuals who are not the same get signals that it's not okay to be different. So, what do I mean? I mean seeing signs up at school that say that Jesus is the reason for the season. Well, if you're a Jewish child and you're in that place and you hear people celebrating Christianity and Jesus, you might feel like it's risky to name the fact that you're in a different philosophy, a different belief system. You might have seen children talking about the idea of not being Christian in negative ways. For instance, claiming that someone will go to hell because they're not Christian. And children are born into a belief system. They don't often get to choose. So imagine a little Jewish boy who's in a town full of what appear to be Christians, and it's never safe for him to say, wait a minute, I'm different. Or if he somehow does say that, then what happens? He's bullied, he's shamed. And I'm just using the example of Christians as the dominant culture because that's the environment I've been raised in. But the same thing happens if you're in a community that's predominantly any religion, and there's a few strays who don't fit into that. So it's a sad and unfortunate thing that we don't always feel safe being who we are. Sometimes we're born into a belief system. We're sort of programmed to believe the way the people around us believe, and we never really think about that. We just adopt those beliefs. But once in a while, there'll be an individual who's born into that group who, for whatever set of reasons, just feels out of sort. So I think of myself as one of those people. My parents didn't go to a church. Every other kid in my town went to church, or so it seemed. And I'd ask my parents, why don't we go to church? And my mother said, well, we can be with God outside. When we're in the woods, we're with God. When we go to the lake, we're with God. God created everything, and I would rather celebrate the creation by being out in it instead of sitting in a building full of people listening to a man tell me about God's creation. And that really resonated with me when my mom told me that. So it really doesn't come as a surprise to me that all these years later, I still feel the same. I think the ultimate creator of everything we can perceive is holy and majestic and unknowable. But because I look like a lot of the people around me, it's often assumed that I believe what the people around me believe. And so I hear comments about how things really are according to this belief system. And they rub on me, sort of like sandpaper. You know, not everything in this oyster shell is oyster. Sometimes there's a little bit of grit in this oyster shell, and there's rubbing and chafing and to put up defenses. If you're that sand, if you're that oyster chafing and rubbing, the oyster puts up defenses, and eventually that little bit of sand becomes a pearl. Well, so does that mean that feeling alone and isolated because you're not part of the local belief system can lead you to become a pearl? It could. I think it depends on how well you take that feeling of being different. In my tradition, which I would call witchcraft or Wicca, we say we're either in the broom closet or out of the broom closet. Being in the broom closet means you're not telling people that you have different beliefs than whatever the popular local beliefs are. Being out of the broom closet means you don't feel that you have to hide it anymore. You know, I actually have memories of a past life in which I was burned alive at the stake for being different from the local population. And you don't have to believe that. My beliefs don't require you to believe me in order for me to feel validated. But I can remember it. I can remember what it felt like. I can remember what it smelled like. I can remember a lot of things about that experience. So when I've been in the broom closet, it's been very much because I do not feel empowered to be myself. I don't have the inner strength to let my freak flag fly because the idea of being that little grain of sand inside that oyster is scary. Maybe I don't know I'm going to turn into a pearl. Maybe all I feel is that I'm being surrounded and pressed in by this oyster's secretions, suffocated, and boundaries put around me, and that thing is other, and we must reject that thing. At other times, though, I've felt more strength and inner resilience and felt like, no, I can do this. I can be myself. Not only can I, but I have to, or else my soul will suffocate. So I want to talk more about this over time. And right now I'm going to stop because I forgot my tripod and my arm's getting tired, and sorry about the bouncing. Hopefully you're not getting nauseous watching this. I love you guys. I'm trying to be my radical, authentic self, and I'm just trusting that anybody who watches this is watching with playful curiosity or love. And I'm just trusting that anybody who wants to gossip or hate will just naturally not discover this video. May it be so. Have a good day.